You want answers? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name is Graham Wilson, and today in my basement, in my armchair quarterback armchair, I'll be talking about can an airplane collapse a bridge if it crashes into it. So yeah, we kind of heard about an unfortunate incident that happened in Baltimore just recently, and yeah, that didn't really turn out too well for a lot of people. That's unfortunate, and so it is in the news. And I got the suggestion from Jordan B, one of my viewers, because I couldn't figure out what I was going to do today. So he says, "Oh, talk about ships crashing." And I was like, I don't know anything about I don't know anything about ships, so I had to learn really, really quickly about it. And I don't really want to get into, who did what. And there's some good conspiracy theories out there too that I like. But with these things, that's why I got the armchair for the armchair quarterback. You just don't know until the full investigation's all done. But it did get me thinking. So thanks for the suggestion, Jordan. Like, what would happen if an airplane crashed into a bridge? We don't want that to happen, and we don't like talking about crashes on the super pilotish channel. But what if? It's, as far as I know, it hasn't happened too much, and I mean, every once in a while, some hot dog will be flying under a bridge and it doesn't go too well. So don't fly under any bridges. It does look cool. That's the unfortunate thing. But yeah, so I was thinking, I saw the video of that happening, and wow, it just really just collapsed. Boom. How could that happen? And what would happen if an airplane bumped into a bridge? Well, that got me thinking a bit more about, okay, what forces would be need? What would the design of the bridge have to be like? Do you have like some kind of cantilevered kind of bridge? Do you have like those ones with the cable suspension bridge? What would be what? And I was looking at the new Gordie Howe Bridge that they were building here in between Windsor and Detroit, and no worries of that happening here because the two main posts that are holding up all, I'm sure that's not the right architectural term, but the two main posts that are holding up all the wires for the suspension bridge or cables, they're on land, so ship won't hit that. But so then I was thinking, okay, let's think about, and like, I don't know, I haven't taken physics in forever, and I remember there's some kind of relationship between, okay, how fast something's going and what its mass is, like how much it weighs. I know there's a difference between weight and mass, but anyways, we'll kind of use them interchangeably here. So you got your good old force equals mass times acceleration. Remember that one? Force equals mass times acceleration. So how much force would it take to knock out a main support of a bridge? Okay, a lot of force, I would think, and I'm sure the architects that designed the bridge, they know exactly how much. Same with any building, if something happens like that. But and then this whole mass times acceleration, I thought, well, a plane would be going a lot faster than a ship would be going. So that's got to do with velocity, not with acceleration. And then I was looking through, and it kind of explained it to this one website I found explained it. Makes sense. So I will kind of explain that to you too. So the main factor here for if something is going to knock something over is the mass. So that's the main factor here. The acceleration is so okay, it was kind of an example. So you got like a tennis ball, right? You throw that against I don't have any tennis balls around here, too bad. But you take a tennis ball and you throw it against the wall. Okay, we'll get out. I thought I'd be using all of my whiteboard technique here today. So there we go. There's a wall. And we're going to throw our tennis ball against the wall. Look at that tennis ball. It just hit the wall. It was going this way. And then it bounces back, right? So the acceleration would be, okay, it was going at a certain speed towards the wall. The acceleration in your force equals mass times acceleration. The acceleration number there would be the speed at which the center of mass of your ball, it's moving along at a certain speed. and then as soon as it hits that wall, the center of mass starts slowing down. So that's a deceleration or negative acceleration, whatever you want to call it. So the point, so this is it's gonna have a certain velocity to it. It might only go like a little bit over here, and the ball deforms, and then it pushes back. So the acceleration would be measured between the center of mass going from a certain speed to zero, and then accelerating back again. So it'd be that little bit. So I mean, if you're hitting something that's more or less solid, like you're running a ground, or you're hitting a really big solid chunk of collection of I-beams. Oh, hey, wrench. Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether you're a great big ship, or for my calculations, I was using an Airbus A380, which is kind of like the biggest plane I could kind of think of. And so either way, the acceleration going from a certain speed down to zero, that's not going to be that much. And so, but what the big difference between the ships and the airplanes is the mass. So I looked up the I looked up the mass of we'll call it weight in pounds, even though weight and mass is different. Mass is if you want to get picky, mass is in slugs in the imperial system. Yes, I know. But okay, so an Airbus A380, if it's all filled right up to the maximum takeoff weight, is about 600 tons. So here we go. Let's do some math and magic over here on the board here again. So that's your great big huge Airbus A380. So we'll just say A380 is 600 tons. 1.2 million pounds. There we go. That's fully loaded, full fuel, full baggage, everything, maximum takeoff weight. So now I was looking up I think it was called the Dali, the ship that kind of had the oops. Okay, now I was looking at its maximum weight, and I forget what they call it for ships. It's like dead lift weight something. I don't know. Anyone that's been in the Navy is going to crucify me on that one. But yeah, so we'll say the Dali, that big container ship. Okay, and that was at the max. I don't know how much it weighed or what its mass was when it actually hit the bridge, but the maximum that it was allowed to have, according to Wikipedia, is what do we got here? It's a big number. 116. Yeah. Okay. So the Dali, if it was all fully loaded, is 116,000 tons. Okay, and I did the math on that, and that ship is 93 times, when it's fully loaded, is 93 times heavier than an Airbus A380. That is an incredible amount of weight. So yeah, so you figure that all that's getting with your force equals mass times acceleration here, humongous mass for these ships. It's just an incredible amount of mass. And the acceleration from it going to zero and then bouncing back, it's probably a matter of milliseconds or something like that, or maybe a second or something. But then the Airbus A380, I was thinking too, it would start falling apart. The wings would fall apart. The fuel would leak out of the tanks and stuff like that. So the center of mass would be changing. The acceleration, the center of mass of the Airbus A380 would be changing, and so that center of mass would probably be moving aft, and it would be a longer acceleration, or what would it be? Shorter. Anyways, it'd be a different acceleration time, and it'd be changing and stuff like that. Oh, hey, DH Pilot 1. I'm using your whiteboard, dude. So, yeah. So there we go. The amount it's it now. Imagine if you had 93 Airbus A380s all crashing into the same place all at once. Yeah, you could probably take down a bridge with 93 planes. That would make sense. So there we go. There's a little bit of I don't know, what was that? Grade 9, grade 10 physics. So could an airplane take down a bridge? Probably not. But I mean, if it was a little, big airplane, little bridge, yeah, sure. So I was also starting to think about, well, how would the if you were having an airplane that was going to uh, have an accident with a bridge, like what would be able to get that airplane away from the bridge? Like a lot, because it's way up in the air, right? The ship is pretty close. So that's kind of like, when I saw that ship, it was kind of like, ooh, that is the exact worst time for something like that, some failure to happen, whatever that failure may be. A failure of the crew, fatigue, mechanical failure, who knows? But something that would be, these guys that are flying underneath, the guys that fly under the bridges, well, they would have to kind of worry about something that ship would have to worry about too, is that the wind. So you've got a great big huge container ship. The wind affects these things, big planes, big ships. The wind affects that just as much as a little one, or just as much as you're riding your bicycle and you can feel the wind. So can everything else, regardless of the size. So the big ship, depending on how strong and what direction the winds were coming from, that could get it off course a little bit. And then so that would be something. If you're flying underneath a bridge, watch out for any type of wind shear. Different layers of air going different ways. You're losing lift. You're going to get a sudden crosswind, and that's going to make you weathercock or something like that. So it's like, yeah. And then how much room do you have? How big is your airplane? What are your skills like? There's a lot of different factors in there to be cool. It's still dangerous, but I'd still love to try it, sort of. But then I go, no. But it's like cool versus safety thing. I'm a little bit more of the safety than cool. And so with the ship, there's another thing you got to worry about there too, is the current. So you got air, you got the wind up here, you got the current that the ship is in. What's the current doing? Is it turbulent? Is it kind of the equivalent of wind shear? Because currents in water behave the same thing as currents in air. They all behave as a fluid. Water is more dense than air, but it's all acts like a fluid. Same thing. And so that's something to think about. It's all armchair quarterback in here, and I don't know what kind of cockpit, or what would they call that, helm voice recorders they have or anything like that on the ship, but I'm sure there's probably something. And we got the GPS data, we got all this other data, and I'm sure there's going to be a gigantic investigation on that. We'll eventually find out what happened, I think. But it's unfortunate no matter how you look at it. But so if you're in an airplane, I really wouldn't worry about taking out a bridge. Yeah. And like, it would be pretty, like I said, if you wanted to take out the bridge in Baltimore, you need 93 Airbus A380s hitting it all at the same time. The chances of that happening are pretty low. I think, I would hope so. But yeah, so that was like, yeah, I just kind of had like that idea in my head here today. So from just strictly the amount of mass, physics, we'll review our little formula: force equals mass times acceleration. Yeah, those container ships are just the mass on those things is just out of this mind-boggling. At what it would take, how much power, how much force would take to stop them. And so, yeah, well, hopefully we'll learn from this one and it doesn't happen again. So, yeah, that was that. And the thing is, I really didn't even want to talk about that today, but I was going to go out in the garage and do kind of a live thing, because I got to trickle charge my battery on my bike still. I've been putting that off, and I thought I'd make a show out of it and also show how to change the clock on my bike. But I went out there and it's a beautiful day out. So my neighbor's out putzing in the backyard there. And so I don't know, all of our neighbors have kind of very low fences, low chain link fences. So everybody can see everybody in their backyard. But we kind of have the unwritten rule that, you kind of give people their privacy a little bit here and there. And knowing my neighbor, he's a nice guy. He'd probably come over and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" Be like, mess up my show or something like that. And I'm not sure he wants to be on YouTube. So yeah. Oh, yeah, 5. Yeah. So yeah. So didn't get to do my my garage show that I wanted to do today. oh well. I'll still hook up my trickle charger to my battery. I checked it out the other day. My battery's down to 11.5 volts, roughly. So not good enough to crank it over. So and it might need a new battery on that one of these days, but trying to hold off on that. So all right. So it is Friday. So this will be. I'll just do a couple little comments here. Wrap it up. We can start our weekends or go back to work or whatever we're doing. Okay, P-38 Ace, Richard Bong flew under the Golden Gate in 1942. Wasn't famous yet. Okay. Yeah, it's flying under bridges. There's a guy here. I don't know if I ever told it. I won't say his name, but there's an interesting story about flying under the bridge that I know a guy that did that here in Windsor. So if you are flying a float plane or a seaplane, you kind of can, there's kind of a gray area where you could fly underneath a bridge. So let's just say you're in for the purposes of taking off and landing, you can be as close as to whatever obstacle you need to be close to, because it's kind of like landing in a farmer's field or something. You can kind of buzz in over his house to the grass strip and you're closer to an obstacle, but it's for the purposes of taking off or landing. So this guy was like, if you're in a float plane, you can fly underneath a bridge and say, I was planning on landing there and I had to inspect the surface of the water to see if there was any logs or obstacles or anything. I decided that the current was too heavy and I decided not to land. I made the safe decision to fly underneath the bridge. So that's kind of like a gray area. I don't know if any regulators would go for that, maybe. But yeah, this one guy, it was funny. He had this little ultralight that was on amphibious floats, so he could go to the airport. He could go land out on the lake or on the river here, and then fly back to the airport. So it floats with like wheels on it. He could go on land or water. So he used to like just buzz down the coast, flying along. He'd go check out all the girls on the beach and stuff like that. They'd wave at him and stuff. So he would always just fly right under. He'd just go buzz along, fly underneath the Ambassador Bridge. He didn't really think anything of it. But then one time he was gonna go fly underneath the bridge, but he decided against it because I forget what it was. So what happened was I think it was George Bush was visiting the Ambassador Bridge that day on the American side. So they had like a bunch of security and there's like police cars and stuff like that around kind of on the shore on the Canadian side. There was a lot of security at the bridge because the president was on the other side. So this guy didn't know anything about it. And this was before TFRs and, notifications of this. And so he was flying along and he thought, well, I better not fly underneath the bridge because there's a bunch of police there. So he just kind of popped his plane up over top of the bridge and then went back down and went flying around. So, I mean, all these so anyways, he went flying around and everybody's watching him. They got snipers up in the top of the bridge and everything like that. And they're all watching this guy fly along with their binoculars. And he just popped up and over the bridge and probably with not enough clearance from the obstacle, but he thought it would be safer to do that than fly underneath. And, yeah, so he came back to the airport and the RCMP were waiting for him there. So it's like cops were waiting for him and like, what were you doing? He's like, I was just flying around. I thought it was safer to go over the bridge. Well, turns out the RCMP, he did get a little fine for that one, I think. And the the RCMP said, you're so lucky the snipers they had their sights on you. And he was like, oh, well, I didn't know. So anyways, yeah, that was a little... I finally got the full story from him like years later about that happening. So anyways, so can you fly underneath the bridge? Yeah, you kind of can if you're on a float plane. And so there we go. That's that. It's a gray area of legal. Okay, and then Wrench was saying that at least 10 planes have flown under the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. That's a pretty big arch. I would say that's relatively safe. Oh, Jordan's here. Okay, what do we got here? Yes, Jordan, you'll have to watch it from the start when we're done, because I gave you a shout out because this was your idea, sort of. Okay, and yeah, that's about it. Okay, I made it about 20 minutes. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so today is Friday, and so I'll be back on Monday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, even though it's a holiday. I don't know, Easter, Sunday, Monday, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm not on vacation, so I'm back at work. I will do this on Monday because I do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern, and we'll just kind of shut her down. And you guys have a great Easter weekend. Catch you on Monday. And thank you for watching. Bye.